Hey, what's going on, everybody? Don Martino here from Extract Media. Today we are talking about The Mandalorian Season 3, Episodes 3 and 4. I am doubling down today because I missed last week, and I apologize. Life has just still been pretty hectic right now. I don't want to get into too much going on behind the scenes, but it is stuff that will hopefully benefit the channel in the future as well, so that's exciting. But hey, I have to do what I have to do to survive. I'm a human being, so there's that. I do want to give you guys a warning. I'm not going to refrain from spoilers in these thoughts today, so just make sure if you haven't seen the episodes and you don't want to know anything, just tune out now. If you don't really care, you can stick around. So episode 3 is called The Convert. It is directed by Lee Isaac Chung. I'm a huge fan of Lee Isaac because of the film Minari. I really thought that film was absolutely beautiful and stunning. I really liked it a lot, and he is a very talented director, and that shows here. I think the reason that they hired Lee Isaac for this episode in particular is because it was so much story, and it was almost its little self-contained movie. It really felt that way. First of all, the way that he shot the action sequences in the beginning when Mando and Bo-Katan were riding through space, getting chased down by TIE fighters and had this little battle. It was amazing. It's some of the best shot stuff in terms of action that I've seen in The Mandalorian, and it just looked incredible. It looked like it was done on location, which I don't think it was, but it looks that good. Bo-Katan's castle gets blown up, which I thought was crazy, and then I loved when all the TIE fighters started coming on Mando's radar. I thought that was hugely surprising and something I didn't expect, but I do suspect Grand Admiral Thrawn is out there somewhere. He is the one controlling these TIE fighters. That's the theory I'm going with for now, and it's a big epic opening. The theme music starts playing and you realize, wow, that's just the opening in this episode, and then it kind of does the bait and switch on you where it kind of dives into some New Republic stuff on Coruscant. So I know that this episode has gotten some pretty mixed reactions from people, so here's where I'm at. On one end, it does feel like it's a lesser quality than Andor was in terms of the way that it deals with politics, but the thing I like about that is that it's done in a very Mandalorian type of way, which differentiates the two shows. A lot of people were making Andor comparisons, which I just think is unfair to The Mandalorian, because when The Mandalorian dives into politics, it's going to do it in the Mandalorian way, as I've already said, and I think in that sense I had a lot of fun with this story, but it's also very different from The Mandalorian in the sense that we are spending so much time away from The Mandalorian and Grogu, so I can understand the mixed reaction for sure. Maybe a little bit more intercutting of the Mando story with this story would have done this episode a huge favor with the audiences, but on the same hand, if you take what you're getting at face value, obviously this is setting something up for later, so I really enjoyed this sort of deviation from the Mandalorian storyline a little bit, just so we can get some more character development on two characters that have already been on the show before but just haven't really had the development, and that's Dr. Pershing, played by Ahmed Abtashi. I apologize if I just butchered that name big time, and Elia Kang, who is pretty much being set up to be the villain of the season. She's played by Katie O'Brien very magnificently, if you ask me. I'm really starting to like this Katie O'Brien as an actress. I think she's very good, and we've seen this story in other material where somebody basically gets set up by an undercover cop, and that's basically what happens to Dr. Pershing here. He's talking to Elia about this cloning stuff and how he feels like it could benefit the New Republic if he continues his research, but she basically tests him to see if he will go out of his way to try to retrieve the right materials to continue this research, and the New Republic clearly does not want him to continue it at all. But I also think Elia is also setting up the New Republic. She's pretending like she's working for the New Republic and that she was testing Dr. Pershing, but on the same hand, I think that this cloning stuff is going to go somewhere else, maybe to Thrawn, maybe to Moff Gideon. I think she's still working on the Imperial side of things personally. I'm pretty sure that's what the episode was trying to get across to us, even though you're pretty much fooled that these two characters have been redeemed, which for the most part, Dr. Pershing really is trying to redeem himself. And you really feel for the guy. I thought the performance was incredible, and I like that now if we go back to the first couple seasons and we look at these characters, we have so much more to think about when seeing them upon a rewatch. This is like the lowest rated episode of The Mandalorian, and I find it kind of sad that we can't sit there and take slower burning storylines anymore, or it seems like audiences really don't have the patience for it, and I feel like that's where the complaints are coming in. A lot of the complaints I saw is that this episode was boring, and if you really are watching it, it doesn't feel boring. It's just trying to tell you a story that's outside of the usual usual Din Djarin Grogu action. But if this episode doesn't pay off later, then I'm probably going to look back at this and say this was pretty stupid at the same time. So I'm kind of trying to stay very cautiously optimistic about where the rest of the season goes before I could fully judge this episode. But as a self-contained story and the way it was directed, I think was really good, and the performances were very good. In terms of direction, some of the better directing we've had in The Mandalorian, without a doubt. There was also one of my favorite John Williams pieces in this episode brought back into it, which was Rise of the Resistance, when they were looking at this rock, and I like that it kind of set up this lore for Coruscant that we've never had before, which, by the way, seeing Coruscant just brought me right back to the prequels in a good way, like the stuff I liked about the prequels, the way it was used here. But at the end, Bo-Katan pretty much gets herself into the Creed with the Mandalorian. He kind of goes back and he gets redeemed, which I gotta say, they wrapped that up pretty quickly, a lot more quickly in this season than I would have thought going in, but I don't mind that. Again, I like that this season seems to remain unpredictable on the same hand. It's pretty awesome. All right, guys, we are now going to talk about episode 4, which is entitled The Foundling, and we knew that this was probably going to be about Grogu for the most part, but it has kind of a double meaning as well. And this is one of those times where I have a responsibility as somebody who is trying to analyze this stuff a little bit better on YouTube to kind of point out the flaws of something, but also have the responsibility of being honest to you guys and tell you my honest personal experience I had with the episode. So on the surface, I will tell you guys, watching this episode, my experience with it was that I was entertained. Carl Weathers directs this episode, and I think in terms of the direction, again, he does a fantastic job. He's very good with action, and in terms of like the way he creates like this Star Wars action with the Star Wars feel, he's done a great job with that in both episodes that he's directed. He's actually somebody who I think can direct very good Star Wars. I have issues with the writing of this episode though, and that's not necessarily in terms of the dialogue per se, well, a little bit, but it's the fact that the storyline is kind of based around this kid getting kidnapped, who we find out who's Tar Vizsla's child, which was a crazy reveal, but I'm not mad about that. I kind of like the concept of Paz and Din Djarin both having their children in this like sort of convert per se. But in the first episode we had the alligator issue, and this one we have the kid getting kidnapped by a dragon. Not one person mentions maybe we should relocate, and Paz Vizsla mentions that this happens all the time, which to me, this is the thing that baffles me the most about the episode and the B plot of this episode. Also the fact that the dragon pretty much waited like 24 hours to feed it to her dragon babies, and that's just kind of illogical and a plot convenience in my personal opinion. So this sort of B plot that's in this episode is really where I had the problems. But luckily, I think that the main story, which is really to me diving into Grogu's backstory, really played extremely well. Ahmed Best ended up being the Jedi to grab Grogu and save him from the Jedi Temple during Order 66, and I thought that was super cool. It really gave Ahmed Best so much redemption after all the hate that he got playing the character Jar Jar Binks, and I think he did a fantastic job as this Jedi. And the flashback contained some of the best lightsaber stuff I've seen on the TV side of Star Wars so far. I'm really extremely pleased with how this was directed by Carl Weathers. I thought he did a great job here. The episode's like 25 minutes long. They save the kid. Bo-Katan goes, and I like that she's getting the Night Owl and the Mythosaur. Is she gonna go try to get this Mythosaur and take over and then challenge Din Djarin now that she's in the convert for this Darksaber? If she can do that, then she gets to take over Mandalore, and that's gonna be pretty insane to me. But I definitely think she's in this for the long game, and that stuff, the main story of this episode, I really enjoyed. Now I'm really trying to figure out what the rest of the season is going to be about, and I think my theory with Bo-Katan is correct. I just want them to dive into it by the time we get to the next episode, because if they don't, they are really dragging out this season. Okay guys, those are my thoughts on episodes 3 and 4 of The Mandalorian season 3. I really like to know what you guys think of these episodes. One I like better than the other. I like the third episode more in terms of the consistency and how it was directed, but episode 4 to me, on the other hand, is so much more entertaining in terms of the pacing and the action, but it has a lot of plot holes, so I just can't personally enjoy that one more. I don't know if that makes sense, but it really is all kind of dependent on where the season goes from here for me. If it remains unpredictable, I'm going to hopefully have a good time, and I can go back and revisit these 2 episodes and either say, hey, these make a lot more sense, they play into the season so much better, or no, they kind of sucked, or they were a waste of time. I don't know. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And before I get out of here, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave some feedback in the comment section below, share this with your friends, and hit the bell for notifications. That's always much appreciated. I am Don Martino, and I will talk to you guys later.